It's not officially hot stove season yet, but the Major League Baseball season could come to an end on Halloween, and there's a former All-Star outfielder that could be available, and the Guardians could be a good landing spot. Let's get into it on today's Locked On Guardians.
Tanner Bobby of the Guardians, and you're listening to Locked On Guardians.
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Guardians fans. Welcome on into an episode of Locked On Guardians. It's a Trade Talk Thursday edition of Locked On Guardians. As always, it is our favorite half hour of the day because for the next half hour, we're talking about your Cleveland Guardians as part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team, your Cleveland Guardians, every single day from the majors, the minors, and the draft, and everything in between. I'm Justin Lada, one of your two co-hosts, have been for the last 3 years, and I've also spent 18 years covering the Cleveland Guardians farm system from Columbus all the way down to Arizona, and of course, all the way up to Cleveland as well.
And I'm Jeff Ellis. I've been here since Locked On expanded into baseball. Before that, I was a national writer at Scout and 24/7 focused on prospects in the draft. I want to thank you for making today's episode your first listen today and every day, wherever it is you get podcasts, as well as giving a big shout out to all the diehards, all of our everydayers in the comments when we are, all kind of waiting for the season to end. So then we have more fun things to talk about, right? Once your team gets eliminated, it's kind of, it's fun to watch baseball. It's fun to have baseball, but it's kind of nice once the season ends and more things can happen.
Yeah, it's nice to have things open up. But there's a hot rumor that's been going around, and it seems like it could happen. The Guardians could be involved. We don't know whether they will be or not, but it seems like there's a possibility of this move happening in the offseason for one team, one way or the other. So we'll get into it. And that player is Jarren Duran of the Boston Red Sox. We'll talk about what it could take to land him, if he's an upgrade for Cleveland, but at what cost, and if he's even really available. Today's show of Trade Talk Thursday, Locked On Guardians, brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. If you're a new customer, you can put just $5 down. And if that bet wins on FanDuel, you get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the FanDuel app today. Play responsibly. All right, so we did a lot on Wednesday's show talking about like Jim Bowden's free. No, was that Wednesday? I'm sorry, it was Tuesday's show. I'm getting my days mixed up here. We talked Tuesday a lot about Jim Bowden's free agent list and some of the fits and some of the contract. I was like, this makes no sense, but I at least liked some of the names and evaluations on there, and there were some guys that you and I thought were a fit for Cleveland. And he's at it again, but this time Jim Bowden's not the only guy who thinks that Jarren Duran is on the block. Now, Jim Bowden's the only guy that specifically mentioned Cleveland as a potential fit, but that's just because the Cleveland Guardians haven't had a really good outfielder outside of, Brantley and Kwan since Sin-Soo Choo, as we were looking that up before the show. It's pretty bad. So
that's the debate. Who is better, Brantley or Choo over the long haul? Peak, it's Brantley, but that's a debate for another day.
Yeah. So anytime there's an outfielder out there that, could be available, everyone wants to connect him to Cleveland because they're the most desperate team for an outfielder because they just haven't had any. So Jarren Duran, why is he even available? Well, there's a lot of Boston news sites out there. So it's not just Jim Bowden. I've seen Ian Brown of I think it's Mass Live, or I can't remember who.
Isn't he MLB.com?
Was he MLB.com? I don't know. I've seen the NBC.com, NBC Boston. I've seen multiple sites talk about Duran being available this offseason. And it's kind of odd because he's a good player. So why would the Red Sox want to move on from Jarren Duran? Like you said it yourself, he was an MVP candidate in 2024, a 7-win season almost. That's pretty darn good. But the reason he might be available is because their best outfield is probably Weiler, Abreu in right, Cedane Rafaela in center, and then Roman Anthony in left. That doesn't really leave a lot of room for Jarren Duran. And one of the things the Red Sox want is pitching. So it seems like this is a guy they're willing to not give up, but a guy they're willing to use. And, we were looking all around for comps, things like that. It was really hard. There's just not a lot of history out there for trades like this, not recently anyway, because we know what the Red Sox are looking for. But I at least will buy that. This isn't a Stock Watch Wednesday anymore, but I will at least buy that Jarren Duran probably is available because I think the Red Sox, I know they really like, obviously, Roman Anthony for good reason. You and I both like Weiler Abreu, and I'm pretty sure he's pretty darn good. And then Ceddanne Rafaela is not a good hitter, but he's a good
Gold Glove
defensive center fielder.
candidate.
Yeah, he's great. And I mean, they can move him to second base and keep it open for Duran at center, but they also are paying Ceddanne Rafaela long term. Duran's the only guy on that team that hasn't gotten a contract from them, and it kind of seems like he won't at this point for one reason or another.
Yeah, and they called up Marcelo Mayer late. I know he played third base, or played some infield for him. They hope, I think, to bring back Bregman, so that'll also define some things. And then just you got to look at the contracts too in general. Like Yoshida, someone they're paying $18 million. I assume maybe he's a platoon guy again. They're paying Christian Campbell. He's got to be, and that's the thing for another day. That could end up being one of the worst contracts in baseball, just because some of the outlying data there and the rough year he had. Tristan Casas, who was hurt. There's talk at this time a year ago, Duran was the center, the future star of the Boston Red Sox, and Tristan Casas was in all the trade pieces. And then they ended up instead using their prospect pool to go out and get that ace pitcher instead of trying to trade Casas. So I am kind of curious to see what they will do. The prospect pool's looking a lot more picked over because of the trade for Crochet and their promotions. I mean, Robin Anthony was fantastic before he got hurt. So if they want to get pitching, and here's the other component very quickly, is the rotation isn't bad, right? It's when you're looking at just how it's, Brian Bello, they gave, a multi-year contract to, a Tanner Bibias contract. Conley Early is a player. A lot of people really liked his minor league performance. I don't know if he's 100% a starter, reliever. Wasn't a great postseason performance, but there's a lot of fun parts there. Cutter Crawford's been solid for them, but he's another guy who might be better served in a pen role. Patrick Sandoval, I loved that contract they gave a year ago. You and I both thought Sandoval was a great, bridge contract player. We'll see if he can come back. So they have a lot of risk in the pen, but the bigger problem I think comes down to when I look at Boston, they want a guy who can be their number 2. They want a guy who can be their number 3. They want a playoff pitcher. They're, we talk about when trading Logan Allen, trading some of these other players, you're trading a guy who's more of a help you get to the postseason. They want a guy who's going to help you in the postseason, not get you there, help you in. And, could be Cantillo, but that's also the problem right now. Like Cantillo and Messick, we have the small sample. Like you and I are both believers, and those are probably, in terms of trade value, the best starters they have, because we're not trading Gavin and Tanner. So it's those two guys are probably the most interesting, but it's hard. I'll be honest. I'll give a sneak peek for later in the show. I'm going to punch my mic while I'm at it, so apologize for that. I don't think that Duran is the guy to target on the Red Sox at all. I've got a name with some big time right-handed pop to bring up later in this episode, but I think Duran is just a hard fit because of the highs he's gotten to, and doesn't hit lefties well. He might be another platoon bat in disguise. Last year he had a 50 plus difference in his WRC plus in his home and away splits. Over his career, it's been closer to average, but it was noticeable. Last year he couldn't hit on the road at all. So there's a lot of warts where I can't see giving up. There is 3 years of control of a guy who should be a good player. I don't know if he's going to be great again, but a good player. How much is that worth?
Yeah, we'll talk about what that's worth in the next segment for sure, and what that would take. The other piece of this too, and I think we should give this caveat before the offseason even begins, is where these rumors come from, right? You have to wonder, okay, why is this name being mentioned? Who does it benefit? Who's giving you the information? I think all those things have to apply here. Why, Jim Bowden will put anything out, truthfully, any news he gets. But he's not the only one here saying that there's a possibility. And everybody, if you just search Jarren Duran's name on the internet, you can find everybody from the Mets, the Tigers, the
Rangers, the
Rangers,
I think it's the Reds.
Everybody's talking about acquiring Jarren Duran. But the rest of the Boston media, the Red Sox media, has said his name gets mentioned in trade talks. And whether that's, whether that's teams inquiring, because look, everybody should be inquiring about good players. Same for the Guardians, right? They should be taking calls on everybody not named Jose Ramirez, and I don't know, I guess that's about it. But you should be taking calls on everybody. Smith.
Cade, I wouldn't say calls.
Well, I mean, I think you have to, but it's just formalities. But the idea is, are they shopping him, or are they taking calls, because there's a difference between that. We'll keep talking about that, what it would take, and if Jarren Duran, I'll see if I agree with Jeff whether he is or isn't a fit on the rest of today's conversation on Locked On Guardians. The NBA, it is back in action, and there's no better place for you to get in on that action than FanDuel. They are the official sports betting partner of the NBA. So if you miss the start of the game, or maybe you want to ride a hot hand throughout the game, no matter who your favorite team is, FanDuel has live bets that's going on throughout everything. Who will score next, fourth quarter comebacks, all those kind of things. And you can combine those bets into live bets and same game parlays for a shot at a bigger payout. I like to go big or go home responsibly, of course, but I like the big odds of the payouts there. If I'm going to have a little bit of fun, I want to try to hit a home run. It does keep every game exciting, especially when your team's making that last push. The Cavs, they were 4.5-point dogs to the Boston on the road. That turned out to be a good call because the Cavs were without a couple players. They struggled, but they'll try to get it back together on Friday against the Raptors. Game 6, the Blue Jays. Maybe you're thinking you want to go with Yamamoto for another complete game. Right now, FanDuel is offering new customers $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Head to FanDuel.com, sign up, play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Appreciate you hanging out with us on today's Locked On Guardians. During the conversation, we're talking about whether or not the Guardians are a fit for former All-Star Jarren Duran. If you like what you're hearing, if you made it this far, hit the bell on YouTube so all the episodes we put live 5 days a week come right to your phone or your computer, or plus any bonus videos we do for reactions, breaking news, things like that. And on audio, if you auto-download, you always get the episodes into your feed as well. So if you're out walking your dog, going for your workout, doing the dishes, cooking, you can put some baseball talk on, even if it's cold out. It's going to be an ugly, ugly weather day in Ohio for Halloween. So it's not going to feel like baseball at all, but we can warm that up a little bit with some baseball talk.
I got to interrupt you because I just don't want people getting angry at me. When Justin's saying I'm saying he's not a fit, I can already see the comments. Like, how can you say he's not a fit on this team, this outfield? I am not saying he's not a fit for the outfield. Duran is a fit on the Cleveland Guardians. He's an upgrade on the Guardians. I think the trade fit is where it's tricky. I just want to clarify before those comments come. I just think it's because listen, the number one talk with him at the trade deadline was him plus another piece or two for Joe Ryan. Joe Ryan's going to get Cy Young votes, right? Like, I think that's what they're aiming for. So now that I've said that and hogged a ton of airtime, I'm going to go quiet here. But I just want to clarify before people get mad.
Yeah. So, I mean, first of all, for Cleveland, if Jarren Duran at all, if there's a possibility the Red Sox would be willing to move him for something, if they're interested in moving him in a trade, you absolutely, if you're the Guardians, you absolutely have to call and ask what that price is. I mean, you have to pick up the phone. That's what we're just talking about. You have to take calls. Now, again, that's different than shopping him, because shopping him, and I got to be honest, like, how many players actually get shopped? Because if you think about it from a negotiation standpoint, what good does it do for a team if they're like, hey, we've got this former All-Star, we're trying to trade him? That puts the leverage in another team's hand, doesn't it? Because you're like, hey, we're trying to trade him. And then everyone's like, oh, they're trying to trade him, which means he's available. And but if you have other teams calling you, asking about that player, the ball's kind of in your court to respond, right? Now it's, they're the ones that have to make the offer. So I wonder, like, how often players get quote unquote shopped. To me, I think when people say use the term shopped, I think there's conversations being had, but it's not necessarily the Red Sox calling all 29 teams saying, hey, Jarren Duran, we'll trade him for a pitcher. Okay, yeah, obviously, but I think other teams are inquiring, saying, hey, what would it take to get Jarren Duran?
Or I think two thoughts on that. One, we don't see as many trades.
Salary.
Like I see, we don't see as many trades as there used to be. Like, let's be real honest about that. That's one of the kind of the changes. Everyone's kind of hugging their prospects and players more and more. But I think what we do see in terms of trying to sell would be a case like Boston calling the Reds and being like, okay, we've got Duran. There's some talk you guys might be willing to move Green. What would it look like? Like, I think it's like that. It's more, it's calling with intent. It's not the idea of like,
yeah, I wouldn't say that's shopping a player. I think that's the idea of.
I think it's calling with
well,
intent, but using
yeah,
specifically a guy like Duran, where maybe they feel like, we got a Gold Glove right fielder who hits the ball really hard. We've got this, defensive whiz, and we got one of the best young prospects in baseball. This is the guy to trade because he's also been productive 2 years in a row and can help you net that piece. I think that's where it is.
Yeah, and that's kind of what we heard, or we've seen, at least in the articles coming from legitimate sources, is the Red Sox really wanted Joe Ryan at the trade deadline. That didn't happen. And if I'm being honest, I don't think if I'm the Twins, I'm taking Jarren Duran for Joe Ryan. Now they have equal years of control left. That's where we're kind of at with Jarren Duran. It's like technically he is a controllable all-star outfielder. So of course he's going to be an upgrade for Cleveland because the bar is pretty low. I mean, there's a reason that, you're talking about Mike Yastrzemski being a fit for Cleveland because the bar is so low for anything there. So of course he's going to be an upgrade. The question is, what are you willing to pay to get that upgrade? And I mean, if I'm the Twins, I'm not interested in trading Joe Ryan for an outfielder I'm going to have 3 years. Because I mean, the Twins spent their entire deadline completely dismantling their team short of Joe Ryan and Byron Buxton, and obviously some of their prospects. Like if you're the Twins, you're kind of ramping up to when Walker Jenkins gets up there. And sure, you can pair Walker Jenkins and Jarren Duran together, but you don't have Joe Ryan. I don't think their system's very good pitching wise. I know this isn't Locked On Twins, but if you compare that to where the Guardians are, like they have not torn down at this team since, I don't know, 21. And I wouldn't even call that a tear down. It was just trading Francisco Lindor because everybody knew that was inevitable. So they're not in the same situations. 3 years of Duran is still very valuable because I think even though he had a down season, he certainly can help this team.
He still had 111 WRC plus. Like, it was still something we'd kill in an outfield spot.
Yeah, his down year. But like, if they're aiming for the moon, I mean, I guess you can always say, hey, you can aim for Joe Ryan, but the equivalent of Joe Ryan in Cleveland is like Gavin Williams, right? Like that's pretty much what it is. Like they're not going to trade.
I would argue that Joe Ryan has more value than Gavin Williams because he's done it more consistently.
Correct. However, Williams is younger and has more control, so that maybe evens things out a little bit.
Aren't they both at 3 years? Gavin Williams would only be 3, and Joe Ryan's only 3, right?
No,
Duran's only 3.
I think Gavin is here through 2030.
I think he got enough last year, and then his rookie year.
Nope. No, Gavin's here through 2030.
Okay, so it's one more year of control.
Yeah. So, I'm sorry. He's here for the 2029. He's a free agent for the 2030 season. Yeah. So, Joe Ryan is a free agent after 2027. And so that's 2 years, actually. 6 and 7 are Joe Ryan's years of control. Okay. And Jarren Duran's years of control are 6, 7, 8.
3. Okay. I thought Ryan had 3.
So
Joe
Ryan's got 2.
Wrong on all counts.
Yeah. Yeah. And then Gavin's got 4 years of control. So I would argue Gavin's got more value. But I can't justify trading Gavin Williams for Jarren Duran straight up.
No.
I can't. Not for this team. And the Red Sox, you can't sit there and say, all right, we'll give you Joey Cantillo and Slade Ciccone and plus prospects. Now the Red Sox, like you said, the Red Sox, they want a pitcher who is going to push them over the edge in the postseason. And much as you and I have been up on Joey Cantillo for years now, Joey Cantillo is not going to make or break the Red Sox in the postseason.
He could, but we haven't seen that consistency yet. Correct.
He could. The talent's there for sure. Yes. But the Red Sox are not trading I want to say proven, but known commodity in.
I think he's proven. Duran. He's a proven, at least above average outfielder.
Yes. And Joey Cantillo has spurts of looking like a really good pitcher. So you're not trading what you know about Jarren Duran for what you might get in Joey Cantillo, and the Red Sox really aren't. I mean, you said the farm system's a little barren, but they're not trading for prospects. They're trying to win next year. So I don't see how Cantillo plus prospects gets you there. All right, we'll talk more about what it would take to get Jarren Duran if there's a real fit. Jeff's got some other names he wants to throw out there, I know, but we'll continue to talk through this and decide on where the Guardians should go and let us know in the thoughts how you feel about Jarren Duran as a fit for the Guardians and what you'd be willing to give up. We'll make some more arguments on that on the rest of today's Locked On Guardians. Today's episode of Locked On Guardians is brought to you by our friends over at Prize Picks. We all have to make decisions every single day, right? And that can give us fatigue. It can be annoying. There can be burnout. But Prize Picks, when you make the right decision, actually gets you paid. What better chance is there of that? Don't miss any of the sports this season. You got the NFL, the NBA. Great time to jump in. And Prize Picks, honestly, is a really easy way to play daily fantasy sports because all you're doing is picking more or less on player stat projections. And if you get those right, you're going to win. It takes less than a minute to put a lineup together. So Thursday Night Football, you got Lamar Jackson. You can stack his stats in the game. You could pick more on his touchdowns. You could pick more on his yards. You could pick less. You can do all kinds of things on the projections for that. And Lamar Jackson, he's an injury risk, right? If he leaves the game with an injury, you can get the injury reboot from Prize Picks, and that's going to save your lineup from a loss. So who else is giving you a mulligan out there? Download the Prize Picks app today, and if you use code LOCKEDONMLB, that's going to get you $50 in lineups to play after you play your first $5 lineup. So that's code LOCKEDONMLB for $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it is good to be right. Thanks for hanging out with us here on this episode of Locked On Guardians. Head on over to Locked On MLB on their feed after you're finished with today's episode for more baseball talk. We've got Locked On MLB with Sully, who's talking about the World Series from a meta point of view. And then you've also got MLB Game Night, where our hosts are breaking down the game to the minutia and getting reactions from our Locked On Blue Jays hosts, Locked On Dodgers hosts, so you can get kind of the national coverage of the World Series with the people from Locked On who live and die and cover these teams every single day. So you're getting insider knowledge as well as national coverage. The only place you can do it is Locked On. The other thing, too, can I also point this out? This is what I hate. I hate this. And this Sully makes a lot of points about this, too.
Eggnog?
He said, yes, I hate eggnog. I hate black licorice. There was something else we recently had a back and forth on. And I was like, oh, that's disgusting. How can you like that? There was something else I had to add to it. And then Jeff randomly sends me pictures of eggnog when he's at the store. And I'm just like, really? I got to start finding something to send you pictures of to piss you off. I could just text you.
I almost I really wanted to make a statement when you're like something else that annoyed me. I almost wanted to make a really incorrect statement, and I restrained myself.
All right. Well, I'll ask what that is after the show. Locked On Insiders, Locked On Guardians Insiders. We'll hear the follow up to that at some point. That's join subtext.com/Locked On Guardians if you want the inside scoop. After the World Series is over, we're due for an insiders chat, so that'll be coming up soon as well. No, I hate when people say former All-Star because Jarren Duran, I'm not obviously saying he's not a good player. He's still a good player. He does have warts. Was not a good defender last year at all, and he regressed in a lot of stat areas, obviously, that are concerning. But we say former All-Star. He had a 6.8 WAR season, so that's still good. That's a very good season. But we talk about like David Fry is a former All-Star. You know what I mean? That could mean a lot of things because Brian LaHair was once an All-Star too. Like, let's be careful about how we frame that
future Guardian, according to Jim Batten, Brian LaHair.
Yes. I think we just need to have a conversation about how we frame former All-Star because, again, Jarren Duran, great 2024 season, but David Fry was also an All-Star, and Brian LaHair, who I'm sure half our audience has never heard of, is also an All-Star. I think we have to be careful how we frame that. I agree. Duran's not a perfect fit, like in terms of trade. I don't really see a pathway, not to steal your phrasing, but I don't really see a pathway because I don't think the Red Sox settle for anything less than Gavin Williams, if I'm being honest. I just don't see how they make that fit. These two have not traded. There's not a lot of good examples of this in the past. Like, we were trying to go back and find different trades. We talked about the Sin-Soo Choo trade, the Mookie Betts trade, which was a David Price salary dump. We tried to find the Andrew Benintendi trade. Like, there's just, teams are hugging prospects more and more these days. which makes me think you probably will see more trades where you trade a major leaguer for a major leaguer, especially given the fact that next year some teams might not have revenue because of the lockout. And that's going to make teams hoard certain types of players a little more than they usually would. So yeah, I think obviously he's an upgrade. If there was a right trade for him, like if you could convince the Red Sox that Joey Cantello is that guy, and we can give you, this prospect that you're interested in, or we could help your bullpen out, even though the Guardians, don't really have much to trade their bullpen, I would absolutely make that trade. And you have to call and you have to decide what it's going to take. But I find it very hard to believe that these two are going to come to a agreement that makes sense for both sides.
Yeah, I don't see a good fit. Now, if I were to ask you who had the best savant page of any hitter that was traded at this last year's deadline, who would you say it was?
At the 2025 deadline?
Well, let's say the month of July. Let's say the month of July.
I don't even remember who was traded. Jeez.
He was traded for a former Guardian.
That does not help me.
It'd be Andrew Vaughn, who was traded for Aaron Savali.
Oh, that wasn't July. That was like May, wasn't it?
No, it was. I'm pretty sure it was July. We'll have to double check. If you look at him, barrel percentage, red, hard hit, launch angle, sweet spot, average exit velocity, squared up, whiff, K, all red. He can chase little. Bat speed isn't the highest. Doesn't walk. Good range at first. Then if you go over and you look at the San Diego Padres, they got off the scrap heap Gavin Sheets, who was third on their team in home runs and had a 111 WRC plus. You know how much I wish we had an outfielder who had a 111 WRC plus? Gavin Sheets was free a year ago, like to any team. He signed, I believe, was playing for league minimum. Mm-hmm. And he is only at 3 years of service time. So when the Padres added him, they have him for the next 3 years or 2 years because he just finished his 4th year. I bring all this up because on the Red Sox is a guy named Romy Gonzalez, who you may not be familiar with. I got to be honest, I was not super familiar with. I did remember him vaguely when he was with the White Sox. But what got my attention is, if I've been talking a lot this offseason about the idea of if you hit the ball hard and you barrel, you can be successful. Like that is about all it takes. If you can, and people are like, hey, John Quincy Noel doesn't barrel at all. Like his barrel rate in the big leagues has been atrocious. It doesn't matter if you're not making, because he also swings at everything. There are guys who have bad swing data who still manage to barrel. Like it can happen, but basically if you don't have good quality contact, doesn't matter. I bring this up because when I was looking at like best hard hit rate in baseball, when I went to the leaderboard, I should just probably pull it up. He was 4th behind like Aaron Judge, and like he was higher than, Pete Alonso's of the world, who's a name that's come up. Like here's a guy who had the 4th best hard hit rate in all of baseball a year ago. Barrels 79th percentile, average exit velocity 95th percentile, great bat speed, chases, whiffs, strikes out, walks, none of them in the bottom 10 percentile, but he does all those things. He also has played every position on the diamond but catcher. And I bring up those 3 names because guess what? Those are 3 dudes who the White Sox all let go. And I think one of the big market inefficiencies right now is how bad for the White Sox to get as bad as they were. They had to be bad at developing talent. And, they had a lot of high picks that didn't work out. And, these players have rebounded very quickly after leaving the White Sox. And when you look at the Boston Red Sox, we talked about why they would talk about trading Duran. They also have Christian Campbell, who we've mentioned, who they're paying, who they're going to want to find a role for. And Campbell and Gonzalez overlap in kind of bad defender, right-handed bat on the infield. And I got to be honest, like Gonzalez, his arm isn't strong, so you probably don't want him at third or right field. But it's like a guy who could be second base, left field, right-handed bat, who had the, like I said, 4th best hard hit percentage. I'm intrigued, and I don't think he would cost a ton. And especially if Boston also brings back Rob Refsnyder, who you and I have liked and talked about, like then there's even less a need.
Sounds like they like him.
Yeah, there's less need there. So this is a player who, when you are a Guardians fan, you can't you can't look at the Durans. Like, when is the last time they went out and got the hot name? Like, Edwin Encarnacion is about the only guy I can ever think of. You have to instead find the Rob. Yeah.
Same here.
Yeah. You know, it doesn't happen often, but instead of the Durans, you have to find the Gonzalez's. And I'm really intrigued. He does the two things you need to do to be successful. He gives them some balance. Has a lot of team control left, so he makes sense for the team as well. You have him for 26, 27, 28. And I said, I think Boston has a lot of other pieces that makes him a guy that can be traded. So I just think, and especially if they do need like some bullpen help, like this is a guy where maybe use the pitching depth, because if Boston can add a back end starter, well, it's even too like if Logan Allen, okay, so they can put Logan Allen, give them another lefty in their rotation, and put a Cutter Crawford.
Yeah, but they've got like Kyle Harrison too. They got they got for Rafael Devers, so
they did. But it's like they could also then move guys like Cutter Crawford, who might be better as a pen arm. Like he's okay as a starter. You know, Ely might end up being more of a reliever, but I think he's just a target. I think he's interesting. Give me the guy with the big exit velocities.
Yeah, they absolutely need that. And Gonzalez has great bat speed. I saw some data on Twitter that we'll use for future shows. But there was some good data out there from a Driveline guy who shared like the best bat speeds in baseball, or the worst bat speeds in baseball. And the worst bat speeds were Steven Kwan, Luis Arraez, Jacob Wilson. Obviously, Wilson stands out a little bit more there because he had a great season. But the other guys in that list were guys like Adam Frazier. Like, there were some terrible players on that list, guys that just are not good. On the flip side of things, the guys with the higher bat speed are good. Romy Gonzalez is in the red on Savant when it comes to bat speed. Now, so is Jarren Duran. So bat speed also matters. You can have a Steven Kwan and a Luis Arraez and a Jacob Wilson, but you also have to have guys like Nick Kurtz and Vladimir Guerrero who swing the ever-loving crap out of the bat and can barrel it, because that's how you get barrels is bat speed. So yeah, Romy Gonzalez fits into that, surprisingly, even though he's not a big dude, but the bat speed is there.
Top 5 in hard hit: Schwarber 1, 2 Ohtani, 3 Judge, 4 Romy Gonzalez, 5 O'Neal Cruz.
One of these things is not like the other, but guess what? They all have good bat speed. They all have that in common. Ohtani, great bat speed. Schwarber, great bat speed.
And Gonzalez has bad launch angle. There might even be more in there if you can help him fix that. So it makes him a little more.
Yeah, I don't know. This is the franchise that's going to do that, but he's already good enough as he is to help this team out next year. But then again, so are a lot of people. All right, we'll be back on Friday. At least I'll be back. Jeff will have the day off, but we'll be talking about some small improvements at catcher that could be big wins for the Guardians. Some market inefficiencies they could take advantage of in the catching market, and some things they could do with game planning that could go a long way for them in 2026 and beyond.
Thank you all for joining us. Remember to rate and review, download daily. It helps. Leave those reviews wherever it is that you listen. Thank you for joining us. Comment below. Favorite Halloween candy, least favorite Halloween candy. I always like the mellow. I know a lot of people like do not like those. So thank you all, and go Guardians, go.